Hi, today we're going to study aphorism number 5 of the Enchiridion, and with me is a very special guest, my granddaughter Emma. So Emma, let's read this and see if we can figure out what it means. This has always been one of my favorite ones. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of things. Thus death is nothing terrible, else it would have appeared so to Socrates. But the terror consists in our notion of death, that it is terrible. When, therefore, we are hindered, or disturbed, or grieved, let us never blame anyone but ourselves, that is, our own judgments. It is the action of an uninstructed person to reproach others for his own misfortunes, of one entering upon instruction to reproach himself, and of one perfectly instructed to reproach neither others nor himself. Now, Em, what do you think that means? What, do you have any idea?
No.
How old are you?
7.
7 years old. Well, Epictetus was a philosopher, and he wrote advice. Why, he didn't actually write it. He would tell his students advice about how to live a good life. And what he's saying in here is that you shouldn't be afraid of natural things like dying, because it's part of nature. What do you think of that? A little hard to understand? It is hard, and I guess when you're 7 it's even harder. Well, it's pretty hard for me to understand too. But we'll get into this a little bit deeper when we start talking about Socrates. Have you ever heard of him? Okay, well, we'll have to see who he is. In the Stoic philosophy, Epictetus found his Christ figure in the person of Socrates. For the average person to truly embrace the Stoic philosophy in its entirety is very close to impossible. And Epictetus realized that. And yet, it is very important to have an example of someone who came close to the ideals of Stoicism. And in Epictetus' mind, it was this man, Socrates, who devoted his life to sharing wisdom amongst the young, and then, having been accused of corrupting those youth whom he actually gave great wisdom to, was forced to drink hemlock and die. So, in Epictetus' mind, Socrates is the embodiment of Stoicism. It's very important to understand that even Epictetus realized how difficult it is for the average person to become a Socrates. And thus he gives us a little bit of a way out. He says we may never become a Socrates, and yet we can try to become more like Socrates. And that's the part of Stoicism which even a wretch like myself can embrace. The idea that I may never get there, but at least I can try, and in the trying I can lead a better life. This notion that Epictetus had, that we're disturbed not by things, but the notions we take of things, is a very profound idea. And in fact, if you're at all interested in modern psychology, the so-called cognitive therapy is based exactly on this idea, that it's what is in our heads that causes us suffering, not the actual event. And I think that this wisdom is probably also shared by the Buddhists. Now, again, it is hard to put this into practice when something that you think is upsetting occurs. It's very easy to lose sight of the wisdom that Epictetus is sharing with us. But it is important to at least try to keep it in mind. Em, do you ever get mad at other people?
Yes.
Do you ever get mad at yourself?
Sometimes.
Well, you know what Epictetus is saying? He says that when we get mad and bothered by things, it's only our own heads that's causing that. So he says you shouldn't go around blaming people or even yourself for things that happen. You should just accept them. What do you think of that? Is that good advice?
I'm leaving.
What?
I'm leaving.
Unfortunately, it appears my 7-year-old granddaughter is an uninstructed person, but I hope to work on her as time goes by, and maybe she will become instructed.